All right, good morning. So, continuing my Desert Island Games series, talking about some of my favorite games. And, I have games that have come onto this list and off this list depending on when I found them and how much I was playing them. That doesn't mean those games have fallen out of favor. It means that there's just other games. And again, as I age and as I play and as I get to a stage in my life, I like to think about, if I only have so much time left on this planet, what do I want to spend my time doing? Or what would I like to make sure I fit in more? Or what would be something I wish I was playing more? Whatever. So something like game-winning drive football would be like tied for number 5 on this list. Game-winning drive football. I just don't play it enough. But when it comes to replay possession-based games that rate the teams historically accurately with enough variance that the matchup matters, game-winning drive football for me is still the best example of a historical replay fast play football game. Okay, is that to knock all the other ones out there? Of course not. I mean, absolutely not. They're all brilliant, but it would be like tied for number 5 on this list, right? Roller Derby Time by Christopher, that would be on this list. I mean, if I expanded the list to 7 games, those 2 games would be on this list, 6 and 7, or they'd be on this list tied at 4 or 5 or whatever. Okay, if we're talking about sports games, if we're talking about just games, so I have options like the survival game, a role-playing game, a sports game, Tally Ho would be tied for 5th on my games list. That's my World War I Wing Commander campaign game. If you'll notice, my Desert Island 5, none of the games on the list are my own games. They're not Dell's games, they're not my games. That's not to say that 3 of my favorite games that I play regularly now are my own games, though. I could just grab the Big Country Time Sports book and it could replace any of those 1 games, and I would have 8 sports games in that book. So, it's to be said, this was about something that you aren't responsible for, and the games that inspired me. This inspired me to even come back to playing tabletop sports games. This didn't inspire me to come back to role playing. It replaced, at the time, my favorite OSR that I had played a ton. That was Basic Fantasy by Terry. I can't remember his name now. Shoot. Anyway, Basic Fantasy is what secured my entry back into fantasy role-playing as an adult. This ended up replacing Basic Fantasy, and this became my go-to resource for almost all of my local sessions. And I've tried to run a few sessions online with it, with friends, etc. They never pan out. We never finish. We never get very far. I don't know why. I don't think people like the slow burn of how I run an OSR game. When it comes down to it, and my white box games are generally a slow burn. They take time to get going, as they're usually sandbox games or open world exploration, but they're always couched in getting the players in the culture and going. And I've tried many times to run white box successfully online with my online friends, and it never goes as well as I'd like to think. But it's not their fault. It's clearly the way I do it. So, long story short. And this I would not want to be without. You'll notice too, part of my inspiration for my favorite games is they're all in book form, and they're all in manageable book form. Both of these games inspired me that when I wanted to make my take my games and make them publish them, I wanted them in book form. And I've stuck to that. I want all of my games in a book form, not in chart and tables, not in a box. Right, I don't want to ship boxes. I don't want people to have to buy boxes, and I don't want charts and tables just scattered all over the place. It's bad enough I have to keep all this stuff, but I want the games themselves fully in the books. And part of the reason I love this is the rule set, but it is this compact, beautiful little book of 140 pages. It's perfect. Okay, so I think I've talked enough about my 5 favorites, but you'll notice the 5 that I talked about in the book: Dead Ball, Baseball with Dice, White Box, Pen and Paper Football, and Lost Ship. All 4 of those are obviously book games, and all of those are inspirations. They're games that inspire me, or have inspired me to either return to these games, play the games, do something other than, like Lost Ship inspired me to play tabletop dice games that aren't board games, but they're also not sports games. So Lost Ship is like a it's a it's a board game that's not in a board, and it's not a sports game, right? So Lost Ship kind of is that breakaway from sports, but isn't a turgid setup adventure game like this would be, right? Okay, so now with that said, and of course the last on the list is Let's Rumble, and that has a rule book, but it's a chart. It's a traditional chart and tables game with a simple little rule book and lists of boxers. There's no way around it. The criterion to get on my list is not that it should be in a book. It's just that you'll notice many of my favorite games or the games that inspired me are in a book form. Okay. All right. So first thing we're going to do, I'm not going to get into a lot of. I'm not going to make a lot of videos on these games. Most people have them, played them ad nauseum, or they know about them. But I like to go over the things that are kind of fun. So number one. When I was a kid, the first thing, even if you were going to be the dungeon master, I was going to be the referee, the game master, the dungeon master. The first thing every book does is a player's handbook. It teaches you how to create characters because players need characters to play. And it's a great way as you're teaching, as players are creating characters, they're learning the rules. And even as a GM, I love to make characters. I'd make pre-mades to hand out to the guys, or I'd make pre-mades for NPCs. So I would actually have complete characters behind my screen that were the NPCs they might meet and things like that, right? So I might not flesh out a module, so to speak, because I was more of a free play GM. I would have the rooms, and I might have some stuff, and I'd have NPCs and cultural things that they needed to put them in the world. But I very rarely would railroad them into a direction, right? There would be a dungeon with directions. They can go right or left or, whatever. They could discover things. But I didn't spend a lot of time doing anything but giving myself the details of that room. That room has 4 skeletons and treasure. That's it. I don't describe it in my modules. And I would, off the cuff of my head, describe it, right? Because I wanted it to feel as natural as possible. It's dark, it's dripping wet, it stinks of foul, and you hear clanking. And as you turn your torch, you see a skeleton, and then another one. Oh my god, there's 8 skeletons in here, and they're coming at you. They're rushing at you with odds and ends of weapons. I don't need to write that in a module. All I need is to know room A has 8 skeletons, and there's this treasure in it, and a secret door on the left wall. I don't need to write boxes of descriptive text, right? So that's just me, but okay. Anyway, so part of the joy of both of these games is you create characters in this book the same way you create teams in this book. And so this is where this was a football game inspired by 3-6 D&D. Okay, so let's make a character. I've named him Julian Baker. Again, this would be the Middle Ages, Julian, and he would derive his last name as the baker's son. Either he works as the baker, he is the baker, or he's the baker's son. I would assume, because he's going to go on a life of adventures, Julian Baker's probably the 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old son of the baker, and he's known in the village as Julian Baker, right? So I don't even know what his class is yet. I'm going to roll him up. So the rules are pretty straight. 3-6 straight down in this order. So strength, dex, con, etc. So you get what you get. And we're going to get 11, 12, 13. How about that? So his strength is a little above average. Remember, average is 10.5. So 13 for Julian is fantastic. Dexterity, 14. Even better. Wow, we got a warrior here, it looks like. Constitution is big. Oh, well, he's a warrior who unfortunately is a little bit feeble. His intelligence is all right, 10. He's average, so he's an average kid. His wisdom is 14, so he's wise for his 16 years. And his charisma is 10. He's average looking kid. So we come in here and we say, okay, that was easy, right? But let's see what our modifiers are. So our modifier is very simple. 7 to 14 is average. So he's average all the way across. He has no negative ratings and he has no positive ratings. So Julian Baker, as far as bonuses, is average. But I would argue strength 13, dex 14, wisdom 14. This guy's a choleric for me. And it's ironic because I am my favorite class and race when I play characters in fantasy games like this. I like to be a priest, cleric, and I like to play humans. So Julian Baker would definitely be probably for me. Now let's double check if cleric has any limitations. The cleric. And the other reason I love this is it is a remaster and a refining of the original simple game. Basic Fantasy is an OSR, but it's kind of taking second edition and simplifying advanced. So Basic Fantasy is like a simplification of advanced Dungeons and Dragons. This is a refinement and a remaster of the original game. So you've got only 4 classes: wizard, cleric, rogue, and warrior. And then of course you got just the 4 races: elf, dwarf, human, and halfling. Or hobbit, you can't use the term, so halfling. And so it stays within the heart of the original fantasy games, those archetypes. And that's huge for me, because when I tell people we're going to play, and I tell them what rules we're going to use, when they go to use the rules and make the play, I want them to stick within the realms of this. I don't want them saying, well, can I be a ranger? Yeah, a ranger is a fighter who uses a bow. So go ahead and roll them up, make a fighter, and we'll call them a ranger, and they use a bow more often. And, you know, I don't want them using 17 different races and 45 different classes and subclasses. I want it to be that strict adherence to the whole core ideas of fantasy role playing. 4 archetypes, 4 races. Right, okay. That's me. I'm kind of a traditionalist when it comes to this stuff. And I don't mind it being trope heavy, because let's face it, part of why we're doing this are to get to these original tropes of why we do this. That doesn't mean we have to role play in boring tropes, but I kind of want this to be the guide that we use for what the hell we're doing, right? Okay, I mean, why buy a book and hand it out and tell people this is what we're doing and then ignore it? That doesn't mean you don't use tweaks and homebrews. As I said before, all of my homebrew tweaks for campaigning are right here, right? Okay. So Julian Baker will be a cleric. He has weapon restrictions. He cannot use bladed weapons. He can only use blunt weapons, so they can't draw blood in a traditional way. They can use flails, etc., so that's fine. They do have spell casting once they get to the 2nd level, I believe, and their saving throw, they receive a +2 bonus on saves for poison and paralysis, right? Okay, limitations, though, I don't believe. So there's 0, hit die 1, +0 to hit, saving throws 15. And the other thing I love about this is saving throws, no matter what you're saving against, is 1 number. So if they're saving against a fall, or they're saving against fire's breath, or they're saving against poison, or they're saving against falling out of a wagon, I don't have to go look up your poison versus death, or look up versus magic. You just say make a save, and they know exactly what they need to do. And this save can be used for all kinds of adventure, right? You can use this for falling out of a wagon, right? If you make your save, you'll suffer only half damage, as you'll hit your feet and kind of roll. But if you fail this roll, you're going to fall flat. You're going to come out and land on your shoulder or something, right? So it allows for really enjoying freewheeling high adventure. So a simple saving throw becomes a high adventure roll, right? How do you turn this into Conan? Use saving throws liberally for all kinds of misadventures or adventures, right? Again, no spells. What's the limitations? They get a prime requisite on wisdom of 15 or more. So his wisdom is only 14, so he doesn't have to be a cleric. However, I think I'm going to make him one because I like playing cleric. So he will be... So Julian Baker will have become a cleric acolyte. So he'll be a young acolyte of the local parish, right? Human, male, and I'll put 16 years old right there. So there he is. He is done. Now his hit die are 1. Now I generally allow people to start with full hit points. No bonus for his wisdom. So his hit die is known as, I'm going to put in pencil, because he would be changing these numbers as he hopefully survives. And his hit points will be 6. Because a hit die for humans, hit dice for characters in this is 6. That's the other thing I love about this. Why do I like this over others? Everything is set to 6. So your hit die, your hit points, and your damage dice are all 6s. So the whole world of damage Whether you're causing damage or you're trying to maintain health or generate health, it uses a standardized 6. So again, old school, simple. Alignment, he's a cleric, and I'm going to say he's lawful. In other words, he follows whatever the laws are, and he tries to, obviously, he could be lawful good or lawful neutral, whatever. But lawful. Experience, he has none. Level, he is 1. And so there he is. I have made Julian Baker ready to go. Now I need to roll up his gold and outfit him. So I think, let's go back in here. Let's go look up. He's got turning undead, so they also have the ability to turn undead as a divine power. Alright, and here we go. Equipment. I believe it's 3d6. Yep, 3d6 times 10. So how much gold will he start his career with? Oh, that figures. Are you kidding me? I had rather my charisma be 4 than have my gold be 40. Oh my lord. So folks, he's going to barely... he is a poor kid. And he should be, right? He might be doing better if he'd stayed a baker, but he's got the eye of adventure. His father tells him, here's your inheritance, boy, get out of my life, go become a priest. You're crazy. Meanwhile, you could inherit the business. This could have been Baker and Sons. As it is, it's going to be Baker. Get out of here, go become a priest, right? Whatever. So we have a backstory. 40 gold is what his father gave him to go away, go join the church, do what you think your heart tells you. And he gives him 40 gold, and he's out the door. So I've already created a simple backstory for Julian Baker. And there we go. On the back, I would write his AC. I would write his gear and equipment, his AC, his encumbrance, how heavy he is for movement restrictions. And then, of course, any notes, like spells, if he has any. When he gets to level 2, he'll have a spell, which would probably be healing, for the party. And there we have it, folks. And most likely, Julian Baker... in a dungeon crawl, he's going to have to play smart. The other thing about old school role-playing games like this that are so important and why they're so much fun is you role-play a character, but player skill can help mitigate your character's dying. So you're meant to play this strategically, trying to not get killed, but at the same time try to play a character. So I would come to these games as a character, and I would play it like the character wouldn't necessarily know. But that's ultimately, I would play for the sake of the character and not for the sake of the game. When I first started playing, because again, I've told the story before, for 20 years, I rarely played. I always GM'd generally. And I only started getting a chance to play regularly online with friends. And so for me, I slowly evolved into enjoying how this was designed to be played. Use your smarts, play the game like it's a game from a strategy perspective, but you can still be a character. I can still be Julian Baker and make decisions and things like Julian, but Julian's not a moron. He knows this is a dangerous world, and he should be trying to mitigate dying, right? So those are things I learned as a player. That was my evolution in play. I went from being a GM, presenting games and worlds and being the referee, to playing more, and then I slowly evolved, realizing, oh, the real joy here is this is a game, right? And you're trying not to die, right? So there we have Julian Baker, White Box, and I talked about why this is on my desert island. I named all the reasons right there. And I have more experience with this version of the game, second only, and I say second only. I played more basic fantasy in my life than I've played any version of a role-playing game. So I played basic D&D as a kid, Holmes a little bit, Redbox D&D for years. We'd go back to it, and no matter how old we got, we were playing the same old rules. We bought other books and stuff, but we were kind of sticking to the old Redbox rules. But even that amount of experience was narrow compared to what happened when I came back as an adult. Basic fantasy. I ran more sessions of basic fantasy than I have of anything in my life. This was getting very close to eclipsing that at the end when I stopped GMing and playing for the most part. But certainly I stopped GMing. White Box, I had hundreds of hours of sessions as a GM in White Box, and it was getting very close to catching basic fantasy. But if I had to choose, This is my desert island takeaway right here for all the reasons I already listed. So there we go. We've made a character. Now you say, okay, so let's go to my favorite, my desert island favorite football game. Now I went a little further in this as I took my book and I actually gave the city markets a number. I've talked about this in another video, from 11 to 66. And you roll to see if you're in a big market or a little market. I weighed the minor markets heavier because it's more likely that teams would be in a small market than teams would be in a big city market. Now, when I say more likely, what I mean is in a fictional universe of not NFL, they're more likely going to be in a small market. They aren't going to be in Chicago competing with the Bears, for instance. So that's why I weighted towards small market. Okay, so remember, my thinking was this, let's say this is in existence at the same time as the NFL, right? So we're going to roll. Now, again, this isn't in the rules. I'm going to do this to create my team. So I'm going to use the first die will dictate whether we're a major or minor market. 1, we're major market. All right, now what market? I'm just going to read them left to right. Left to right is 16. 16 is Charlotte. There we go. How about that? Charlotte. All right, the Charlotte, what's Rebels? Bees? How about Charlotte Hornets? I don't know yet. I don't know on that yet. Okay, now, let's go back here to creation. And this is where this game, when I first found this, number one, the reason I even bought it was, first, it was football. My favorite, outside of boxing, my favorite thing in the world is football. And I saw, wow, there's a tabletop pen and paper football game, even called pen and paper, with this classic art. I was like, this is amazing. And then I saw who did it, John M. Stater. And people may not remember, but when I was first on YouTube and I had a channel called Dark Age of Man, or Dark Age of, my old YouTube channel, I played a lot of role-playing games that weren't traditional. And I discovered John M. Stater's OSRs, and I bought every book John M. Stater published, because he made all these great role-playing games that didn't use the D20 system. They were amazing 2D6 games and things like that. And they weren't traditional fantasy. They had all kinds of different stuff. And he was my favorite role-playing game designer. And when I saw in 2017 that he had this book out, I just about killed myself to get it. And I was so confident in it that I ordered 2 books on my first order. I just said, I know this is going to be amazing. So I ordered 2. And since then, I have 3 or 4 copies of this. I've worn one out. This one's getting really worn out. And then I have 2 that I actually keep in storage. Right, that's how much I love this game. I really don't see myself ever being without this game. This is a game I'll probably be playing in my 80s. Right, it's just, I have a feeling I'll evolve where this is all I play in my 80s. Right. So John M. Stater, and because of how it plays quickly and how it elicits a game of football in just a few rolls of dice from you. All right, so again, very much like D&D, we have 6 attributes, right? We have quarterback, running backs, wide receivers. We have linemen. By the way, linemen in this are both offense and defense, but you only use them toward defense. So it's confusing, but people think that he skips offensive linemen. He doesn't. Lineman includes offense and defense, but you only count the linemen when you're tallying defense. And then we have linebacker unit and we have DB unit, right? So what's obviously missing from here is special teams, but we're simulating the whole game of football. Special teams are kind of a... So you could change this, right, to backs, offensive linemen, special teams, and you could have then defensive line, linebacker, DB, right? You just need 6. And you need to make sure the first 3 add up for offense, second 3 add up for defense. So we're going to roll. And we're going to create Charlotte just like we created Julian Baker. 7. Ooh, quarterback. No, no, no. That's not good. So Charlotte, it better be able to run the ball, baby. Oh my God, 7 running backs. This better be a... Okay, so I went from better be able to run to now better be a defensive team. Charlotte is going to stink. Oh my God. 8 wide receivers. Are you kidding? All right, defense. They got to be good at something, right? All right, 12. That's better. We got 12 on linemen. That's why it's LM, linemen, both offense and defense. 13 on linebackers. And DBs are 10, 11. Okay, so the defense is pretty good. Offense, lordy. Okay, so offense, okay, 7 is plus. So now we go through and give them their bonuses. So 7 is plus 2. 7 plus 2. 8 is also plus 2. Defense 12 is plus 3. Linebacker plus 4 linebackers, baby. And our DBs are plus 3. So these 3 are going to be our offense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus 6. And our defense 7, 8, 9, 10 plus 10. Holy cow. So this is definitely a defensive powerhouse right there. And there we have it, folks. That team's done. We're finished. Charlotte's done. This is where I would name a head coach, and I would maybe write a blurb about the owner or something, whatever, coach and owner. But outside of that, I might then, of course, create a roster for all my starters, and I roll a where's my die? So normally, what I do as a tweak, I use what's called a fate die, and I roll this when I create my team. So if I roll a plus, that means the quarterbacks have a star quarterback. If I roll a minus, that means you take one away and it's a deficit, right? If I roll blank, this is just normal. So let's say I roll this quarterback. Okay, this quarterback, 10, 11, 12, 13, and we have a star. So I would come down here, right? So I could have rolled 7 and still had a star quarterback, which means everybody on the bench is bad. I mean, these are guys that you would not want on your team, but you got to have a body in case somebody gets hurt. But I'd write down here quarterback, number 7, Charlie Andrews, star. And I know that this team has a star in the quarterback position, even though they're only a plus 7, right? Again, that's a modifier. That's not part of the rules. So I didn't want to confuse this by doing my tweaks, but that's what I would do. And I'd write down, so I could have a star. Very often I'll have a star in every. And why do I have a star? When I use my rules, when I flip this over, it says sack, fumble recovery, linebacker, star. So if I'm playing 2 teams and they fail to score, I flip the card for the other team. And if it says sack, FR, linebacker, star, and the other team has a star linebacker, he's going to get a sack with a fumble recovery. That's why they didn't score. But if they don't have a star linebacker, it's just a punt. Or it could be a sack with a punt. But I wouldn't track a fumble against the opposing quarterback or whatever, right? So that's why I had a star rating system, because my cards would point to a star. Some will, some won't. Some will just say it's sack, fumble recovery, linebacker. So any linebacker in the universe could get a sack and a fumble, but the star could get a special one, right? So that means the star should be collecting more big plays in the course of the season. And that's how that works. But this team's done. Now I would want to come up with a nickname. There are names in the book here. He's pretty good about providing 32 NFL teams, or 32 fictional teams. I think he has a Charlotte in here. No, he has Carolina. No Charlotte. So what would I call these guys? The Charlotte... God, I don't know. How about the Charlotte... I kind of like Rebels. It's not Charlotte Bees, the Charlotte Sting. I don't know, man. Let's go Rebels. Charlotte Rebels. The Charlotte Rebels. There they are. And then we know they're a major market. Right? Major market. And they, right now, no stars. Again, I normally use this, and it tells me if I have stars in certain position groups. All right, so there they are, the Charlotte Bears. So here's Julian Baker. Rolled him up, 3-6, straight down. He has no modifiers based on this set of rules. Now, in basic D&D, they have some pluses. If you were playing basic D&D, he's a choleric, human male, 16 years old, hit die 1. It gives him 6 hit points. He's lawful, experience is 0, level 0, and he starts with 40 gold. I have yet to outfit him. In pen and paper football, which uses the D&D formula, which is again part of why I loved it, is he stuck with the thing that we all loved as kids. I think a lot of people, I was playing Pay Dirt and Status Pro before I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. My brother was teaching me pay dirt and bowl bound. Matter of fact, I think bowl bound was the first thing my oldest brother taught me. I had found Holmes at 8 years old, but I didn't really understand what the hell it was, right? I just found it in my brother's closet. But I was curious about it and showed it to my friends, and we tried to make sense of it. But I was really playing bowl bound at 9 or 10 with my oldest brother. So my first experience in tabletop gaming outside of Monopoly, Risk, whatever, Stratego, whatever, the Battleship, that kind of stuff, was bowl bound. And then pay dirt, and then Status Pro basketball, and then Status Pro football, and then Title Bout, right? And then there were war games, a myriad of Avalon Hill war games that my best friend loved. So he liked war games, so we would play some war games. But then it was Dungeons and Dragons was the chief role-playing game that we parlayed into. But such fond memories of, and so much of my passion in tabletop gaming was role-playing, that to see my favorite game designer put out a pen and paper football game that used the D&D generation system to make teams, for me, is it's a masterstroke. And then, of course, to have the D20 weighted for potential scoring per quarter, masterstroke. And I'll be honest, I don't think there is a fast play football game that does better than this. When it comes right down to it, a fictional fast play football game, it's just almost perfect for fast play fictional, right? Now, obviously, we're talking about fast play, historic replay. Oh my God, there's fast drive football, game winning drive football, drive time football. There's a lot of brilliant fast play historic football games, right? Okay, so there we have it, folks. We've made 2. So part of why these 2 are on my list is what you just saw. They use the 3-6 generation for teams, for characters, right? And there we have it. So again, wrapping up my Desert Island second video in this series. Next, I'll talk about Dead Ball. I'm going to break out a couple of my teams that I was playing for months, and just play maybe through one game sitting here at the table. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. Again, most of the people who follow me know Dead Ball, baseball with dice. I don't do co-ed. So one of the knocks, for some reason, I think a lot of people don't like W.M. Akers. I don't have a problem with him. I don't know him personally. I don't know anything about him. What I mean is I don't think they like that some of his stuff is inclusive, right? Dead Ball has a mix of men and women on teams, and I think that for some reason there's a lot of people who don't like that. It's fictional. It's fantasy. I don't care. My teams, though, in my Colorado League, don't have any girls on them. They're all, it's men's baseball. So again, you don't have to play with girls on your teams if you don't want intermixed. Or now that doesn't mean you can't have girls teams. You can have you can make Dead Ball softball and have girls teams or whatever. My point is, I have an adult Colorado League, Montrose, Grand Junction, etc., and it's adult men that are created and rated, and what I was playing. And fantastic. I have not played Dead Ball in a long time, partially because baseball is not my first choice. Of everything I do, I would say soccer is the least thing I do. Partially because I honestly don't have a great soccer game. I mean, my soccer games are all right, but I just don't have a really brilliant soccer game. And therefore, there's nothing that inspires me to play it regularly, so to speak. I like my soccer games, but again, I don't like them well enough that it wins me over continually. And I'm being honest, right? I'm even evaluating my own games here. Next would probably be baseball. I play it the second least. Then it would be hockey, and then it would be racing, and then it would be boxing and football, are close tie. I probably play more football still because there's just more going on with football, my career football games. As far as structured leagues with a beginning and middle and an end, and then a playoff and a championship, and we start over. Boxing is more complicated in that you bring new boxers in, you box all these fights, you try to develop records and standings, and then you have championship bouts. And boxing has no beginning, middle, and end. If you think about boxing, there's eras. There's the birth of boxing. There's eras. There's the change. But technically, boxing is just periods where boxers come and go in history. Football, baseball, leagues have these kind of bookends. They start, they end, they crown a champ, and then we do it again next year. And so things are kind of self-contained, tidy, and neat. boxing, it does not have these tight, beautiful little guidelines. So I find myself overwhelmed with having to get enough records for fictional boxers. So I have my boxing here. So I fought a lot of my fictional boxers to generate records, and that took a lot of time. And then it's like, okay, but when do I retire these guys? And now I have a record for them. Does that just give me guidelines or what? So it's not as clean and neat as, say, a career as an adventurer on adventures to eventually you will quit, he'll retire, or he'll die. And most likely he'll die. He'll rarely retire because you'll quit playing, or he'll die before you. He'll certainly die long before you quit playing. And rarely will a player ever get to the highest level in which he'll retire. Player, I should say character, excuse me. Players can play many, many different characters. So anyway, long story short, soccer is the least thing I play the most. Baseball would be the second least. And that doesn't mean, though, that dead ball, baseball with dice isn't phenomenal. It's just not where I go when I want to sit down in the mornings and play, right? All right, I'm going to shut up now. Everybody out there, have a wonderful holiday. Bye-bye.